The new Acura ADX is the smallest crossover SUV that you can now buy from the Japanese brand, and it is based on the Honda HR-V. So does that mean that this is just a fancy HR-V, or does it actually feel like a proper Acura model? Well, let's go for a drive and find out. One of the biggest changes to this ADX from the HR-V is the powertrain. Acura's engineers did away with the 2-liter naturally aspirated engine of the HR-V, which felt very underpowered, especially on highways, and instead put a 1.5-liter turbo 4-cylinder under the hood of this ADX. It produces 190 horsepower and 179 pound-feet of torque, and because it is turbocharged, that torque figure comes in at below 2,000 RPMs. So you don't really need to rev this engine all that much to get going. The ADX feels a bit more effortless to get off the line and also to merge onto a highway compared to the HR-V. Having said that, it doesn't quite feel like an Acura, and I think that's mostly down to the transmission that is paired with this engine. It's a CVT, it's not a traditional automatic. So whenever you're setting off from a stop, the RPMs just hold at around 2,000 and they stay there until you reach your desired speed. And that's what makes this car feel not like an Acura, just that constant droning whenever you accelerate. Of course, if you switch the gear selector into S or switch into the sport drive mode and start using the paddle shifters, you do get 7 virtual gears to play around with, but it still doesn't feel quite the same as a traditional automatic like the ones that you would find in the RDX or MDX. Also, this ADX doesn't receive the same super handling all-wheel drive system of the RDX and the MDX. So the engine's power is distributed between the front wheels and the back wheels, but between those back wheels, power can't get distributed more to one side than the other. It's always equal. The steering though is direct and it's decently weighted, but of course it just doesn't quite feel the same as it does in the RDX. You just get the impression that this car was made to maneuver better in a parking lot rather than a winding backcountry road. And that's why to me, this ADX doesn't have the same sporty driving demeanor as its bigger brothers. However, in a city environment, I think that it is really good. It's easy to drive, it's not that big, and on highways, it does get some pretty decent fuel economy numbers. Officially, it is rated for 7.7 liters per 100 kilometers on a highway and 9.1 liters per 100 kilometers in a city. But I've noticed that if you drive just on highways, you can actually get the fuel economy down to as low as about 6 liters per 100 kilometers. However, during the time that I've been driving this car, I've been mainly driving it in a city environment. So my average fuel consumption is 8.7 liters per 100 kilometers. So the ADX definitely benefits from the more powerful engine, but the CVT does let things down a bit. So what have Acura's engineers done on the inside of the ADX to make it different from the HR-V? Because the 2025 Acura ADX is the least expensive crossover SUV, it does not receive the adaptive dampers of its bigger siblings. But even so, the ride is compliant over most uneven and poorly maintained roads. The ADX doesn't bounce too much when the wheels encounter a pothole, nor does the suspension make the ride feel jiggly. The cabin of the ADX is a little bit quieter than that of the Honda HR-V. This is in part due to standard active noise cancellation and the fact that the engine doesn't need to be revved as much as the one in the Honda to get going. But when this turbo engine does get closer to the red line, it's unfortunately not a pleasant sound. As for road and wind noise, both are well subdued, with mostly tire noise being audible on highways, but the road noise is not obtrusive. The interior of the Acura ADX is very simple and very straightforward to use. From the climate controls to the steering wheel mounted controls to all of these controls that are on the center console, basically anybody can figure out how they work. Best of all, there's no trackpad on the center console because the infotainment system is controlled through a 9-inch touchscreen. This is the same system that is found in the Acura Integra, which is the same as in the Honda Civic. It's very simple to get around and familiarize yourself with it. Plus, you can customize some of the widgets on the home screen, as well as the quick access icons on the far left side of the infotainment touchscreen. Of course, it does support wireless Apple CarPlay and wireless Android Auto, and it is an Android automotive-based system, so it already has Google Maps built in, as well as Google Assistant, Alexa, and the Play Store, among many other apps. The design of the ADX's interior is similar to the Honda HR-V, but not quite exactly the same. The air vents, for example, are different, as well as the center console. The materials in this cabin are soft to the touch, and of course it's mostly on the upper portions of this cabin where you will find and see these materials, but the lower portions are made out of harder plastics. Additionally, there is quite a bit of gloss black plastic on the center console, and as I'm sure you know, this material is very difficult to maintain over a longer period of time because it easily highlights scratches, dust, fingerprints, so I'm not sure why Acura continues to use this material. There are better materials out there, like the one that's across the dashboard. If they use this metal-looking material down here, I think that would look a lot better. As for interior space, in the front seats, of course, there's no issues whatsoever. I have plenty of legroom and plenty of headroom. I did lower the seat to its lowest position, but because the hood has so many contours to it, I can easily see the very edges of the hood. Visibility out the back is pretty good as well, as are the blind zones. And that's about it for the front seats. Now let's go sit in the back. Because the ADX is based on the HR-V and the current HR-V is much bigger than the previous generation, it means that there's quite a lot of space in these back seats. Behind my 6'4" driving position, it does look like as though my knees are digging into the back of the front seat, but they're actually not. They're just gently brushing up against it. And the back of these front seats are made out of soft leather. Headroom is not so bad so long as you tilt your head just a little bit behind the sunroof mechanism, because if you tilt it forward, then I can feel my hair brushing just a little bit. But back here, no issues whatsoever. If you are relegated to the center seat, you do sit a little bit higher up than the outboard seats, so you will have a bit less headroom. But you don't have to worry about legroom all that much because the floor is pretty much flat. Back here there are also a couple of air vents and 2 USB-C ports, but no heated seats on this top spec trim. In the trunk, the 2025 Acura ADX has 656 liters of cargo space behind the rear seats. With those seats folded, cargo capacity increases to 1,526 liters. A couple of things to note: the front seats may need to be moved forward in order for the rear seat backrest to fold down completely. And in Canada, the ADX does not come with a temporary spare wheel. In the United States, all-wheel drive models do come with one. Getting into the Acura ADX isn't going to cost you that much money because it starts at just under $45,000 Canadian. A fully loaded top spec trim like this one will set you back $51,500 Canadian. But here in Canada, it's only available with all-wheel drive, whereas in the United States, you have the option of front-wheel drive or all-wheel drive. The 2025 Acura ADX comes pretty well equipped with quite a lot of standard convenience features. In Canada, it has heated front seats with leatherette upholstery, 8-way power adjustable driver's seat, a heated steering wheel, a power sunroof, dual-zone automatic climate controls, an 8-speaker audio system, a 9-inch infotainment touchscreen, a 10.2-inch digital driver display, a wireless phone charging pad, and a power programmable liftgate. This top Platinum Elite A-Spec trim gets ventilated front seats, though these are also available on the mid-grade A-Spec trim as well, a Bang & Olufsen audio system with 15 speakers, a 12-way power driver seat with a 4-way power passenger seat, and Google built-in with Amazon Alexa features for the infotainment system. As for the styling, for the most part the ADX does look like an Acura model from the outside. It has the chicane LED daytime running lights and taillights, a diamond grille with the large Acura emblem in the center, and real exhaust pipes that are not hidden behind the bumper cover. But it's the tailgate that is reminiscent of the HR-V. At a glance, you'd think that you're looking at a Honda, not an Acura. So is the Acura ADX just a Honda HR-V but with a fancy badge? Not really. So firstly, I'm glad that Acura's engineers threw out that 2-liter naturally aspirated engine from the HR-V, because the 1.5 turbo in this one makes this car feel a lot more peppy to drive than the HR-V. The cabin materials are nicer and the cabin itself is a little bit quieter than the HR-V. Plus, of course, it is very spacious, just like the HR-V. However, this car doesn't feel quite as nice to drive as the RDX or the MDX. And I think it all comes down to the CVT transmission. It's just boring. If it had a 6-speed automatic or an 8-speed automatic, then I think it would be more fun. But if you want a sporty driving small crossover SUV like this one, I'd look at the Mazda CX-30 Turbo, or just upgrade to the RDX. Otherwise, this is very good for daily commutes or long highway drives, but just not enthusiastic backcountry road type of driving. In the meantime, however, if you would like to know more about this Acura ADX, I have a more detailed written review of it over on my website. You can find that link in the video description or click on the pop-up banner right up there. And as always, I will see you in the next car, truck, or most likely another crossover SUV like this one. Anyway, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and see you in the next one.